Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Just Make It Pretty podcast, or welcome if it is your first time here. Today, we are talking about CRMs and why your CRM isn't working and how to fix the real problems. I see so many times where builders struggle with their CRM and why the tool itself sometimes really isn't the issue. And so that's what I want to talk about today. And I have a guest that's coming with me that's really going to unpack how disconnected teams, poor CRM setup, and honestly, just the lack of accountability is normally the breaker with that buyer journey. So if that sounds interesting to you, please stick around and let's get right into it. Welcome to the Just Make It Pretty podcast, the marketing and mindset show for home builders and beyond. I'm your host, Sarah Haynes, and around here we go beyond pretty pictures and we get honest about what's working, what's not, and what it really takes to build better brands, better experiences, and better teams. You'll find creative ideas, practical strategies, and conversations that actually matter. I'm so glad you're here. Now let's get started. All right, everybody, we are back with today's guest. I am so excited to introduce you guys to Derek Bryant. He is the founder at Vantage Analytics Group. And we just got connected, Derek, and I feel like we have known each other for forever. It's been so fast, but so good. So thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been fun getting to know you. And you're right. You and I immediately, I don't think there was any small talk when we got introduced. It was straight into deep technical questions and marketing and sales stuff, which was great.
I will try to skip over small talk every chance I get because I have talked about the weather just about as many times as I think I can possibly stomach. Well, we jumped right into our topic when we were talking before, and talking about CRMs, I think it's so interesting and it's something that so many builders feel stuck with. So I think that's another thing. We just have so much to talk about. So this is for sure going to be a
We
great
do.
episode. So before we dive in, though, I do want to give you a chance to introduce yourself a little bit. Tell the people how you got to where you are today, how you got into the building industry. Give us kind of the whole story.
Oh, I'll condense it instead of the whole story because we only have so much time. But
Okay, sure.
so I've been doing digital marketing for coming on 13 years now. And in that, I'm now in the builder space for almost 4 years now. Started working with Keystone Custom Homes, doing their marketing strategy, and then from there it evolved into my own business and doing the strategy and data analytics for multiple builders.
Well, I love stories like that because that's similar to how I got started too. It was like, I'm doing it over here, and then all of a sudden I got pulled into home building, and then I never left.
But yeah, I've been loving the home building industry. It's coming from doing marketing agency work, which is really hard for with a lot of small business because you get really small budgets to work on stuff. And then people expect results and they're like, hey, I want to spend 50 bucks a month on Google ads. And you, okay, it's not going to
Yeah.
do anything.
Yeah. No, I see that all the time. And it is tough. I think businesses are always in a weird situation where it's like we don't have enough budget to do it in-house, but also our budget isn't very big to have an outsourced company do it either. They're between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah. So the building industry I love because the businesses seem to understand that we have to put some money behind stuff and then we'll see results.
Let's start talking about CRMs. Like I said, I feel like a lot of builders are stuck with their CRM. And I've seen that the real issue a lot of times isn't the tool that they're using, but it disconnects within their process or their internal communication or whatever it is. I'd love to hear your take on that. And when you step into a builder CRM, what do you feel is the first thing you notice?
So usually the first thing I'll notice is I tend to look at it as the funnel and start from the top and just work my way down. And so I'll start at the top with marketing and leads coming in and just make sure is everything hooked up right? Are we pulling out of GA4 all of our session data that we need? Digging into Tag Manager and making sure are we recording events properly on the website? Sometimes it'll be tags misfiring because they're not set with the right parameters, and so it can be over-reporting on something sometimes. And then I'll dig deeper and start looking at ad source, like lead sources, and Am I actually seeing where everything is coming from and is it tracking properly? And at the number of times I see lead source that says website and I just cringe a little of website's not a lead source.
Yeah.
Website is your website. I want, is it organic? Is it social? Is it ads? Is it Zillow? I gotta know because
Mhm.
that bucket of website tells us nothing.
Yeah.
And then I just keep digging, peeling away layer by layer and just making sure is everything flowing through so that when I get to the bottom and start talking about cost per sale or conversions to sale, I know everything leading up to it is accurate. And so we can start giving real analysis, not guesswork.
I think that's one of the reasons too why builders have a tough time because that was a lot of analytics you just went through. It was a lot of data that you have to
A
sift through,
ton.
and it's a big undertaking. It feels very overwhelming to try to go in and
Oh,
do
yeah.
that.
Oh, for sure. It's your Google Analytics, you're looking at Zillow dashboards, you're looking at Realtor.com, you're looking at Google Ads, you're looking Meta. It's all these different places where data is coming in and making sure is it actually all hooked up so we're getting that data, right? Because other times it's passing through and it's not being collected or it's just going to the ether and then what do you do with that?
Now, there's a ton of variables at play, and I come across a lot of builders that like, we know there's a problem, but we don't know what it is. It could be literally anywhere. And so you have to do that deep dive to really understand where you're either leaking leads or where your data is missing. And that's something that it's just not built in natively to a home builder's team typically.
Because you think who of the normal marketing team, who's the person that's going to end up doing that? Is that your marketing coordinator? Usually it falls on the marketing manager, but they're already trying to handle everything else. So how are
Yeah.
they supposed to dig into the analytics?
Yes, definitely. So yeah, I think there's a lot of data. It's a big job. And then I also think that one of the things is the CRM is only one part of that. So you've got all these pieces that are coming in and identifying where the problem is actually at is just the first step. Now you have to figure out how you're going to fix that within your CRM and where that data actually should be living. So you've got this whole infrastructure really that you have to evaluate. And that doesn't even take into account once you do get those leads, what actually happens to them in the CRM, who's following up with them, and what processes are in place there. I think that the CRM systems that we have to use today are great. We've got so much capability within them. And I just find that a lot of times the technology is not the problem. It was in the setup. So I guess my question for you is, do you agree with that statement?
100%. Between Salesforce and HubSpot and any of the other CRMs out there, the capabilities are pretty much always going to be there. It's just an issue of how did it get set up, right? There's such big blank canvases that getting it set up for the builders specifically and their workflow and the teams that are going to be involved, there has to be a very specific and intentional setup so that, like you said, those processes are there. So that once
Mhm.
the lead comes in, are we nurturing them? Are we getting the information? Is it passing through? Are we doing the follow-up? Like
Yeah.
getting all that built in to just run.
I also see that a lot of teams really struggle to actually use the system, even though it has so much capability. They don't actually even know that it's in there. So
Yeah,
so that's a big roadblock for a lot of people.
sure. There was a case study I was just reading a couple weeks ago that talked about they did this huge analysis of hundreds of businesses, not just builders, but nationwide. And they found there was only 89% of businesses said they had a defined sales process, and 36% of them follow it.
Yeah. I don't think anybody
And
wanted to get that data.
that floored me
Mm.
to think we spend how many thousands, tens of thousands of dollars on getting a sales process, getting coaching from sales leaders, training for our OSCs, all this great stuff. And then it's just not followed. And to your point, it's because it's not really baked into the CRM to be easily followed, right? It's all right, we've got this sheet, this document, all right, it's going to live in our Dropbox or our shared drive or whatever it's put into. and then it lives over here and not in the CRM where people are actually working every day.
Yeah. Yeah, I think training is a big problem. And I think you have to have the infrastructure before you come up with all those strategies. But I think too, that process can sometimes become muddled. You don't have the infrastructure or you don't have the strategy after it. So it's really difficult to require your team to be like, you have to use a CRM when you don't have all that in place and you haven't done the proper training.
Yeah, that case study took it further and said, why aren't you guys following up? And the one of the biggest responses they got was people saying, well, my manager never checks.
Yeah.
And you go, because the system hasn't been built in a way to make it easy to check and follow up and hold people accountable.
That's a leadership problem for sure. And I think that just goes back to if the leadership doesn't know and doesn't value all of that, then they're not going to require their team to do it.
And then why would the team do it?
Yeah. So then it just falls down the whole ladder at that point. So really like when we work with builders that are doing an CRM implementation or they're switching things around, having this come from the top and really making sure that we have buy-in from the very top is so important. And then that leadership has to continually work on it. I had a podcast with the team over at Lasso. Heidi came on the podcast. She
Mm.
talked about how you can use your CRM to actually do some of that training. And I thought that was so genius. It's like I haven't heard a lot of leaders
Oh.
talk about pull up your dashboard in your training meetings and using it that way. It's all there. All the information, the data that you're talking about should be right there. So I think that's a really good tip for builders. Make it a part of your whole process. Make the CRM not just another tool and make it a part of training, your meetings, everything.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We were talking a little bit before about the collab event that just happened in Charlotte. And that was a big thing that I kept coming back to as I was listening to the speakers and we were doing worksheets and everything. So I kept thinking and I kept asking people like, how can we make this more accessible for you guys so it's right there in the CRM front and center to keep
Yeah.
being done consistently? What does this look like? How do I help you guys make this easier?
Did you get some good feedback?
I did. I did. One of the big ones was on sales notes, right? So, how do you make sure your sales team are actually putting in the notes after their meetings in the CRMs? And obviously, there's now things like Rilla and Ask Sales is another, so that they can just record the meetings as they're happening, and the software itself puts it into the CRM and will parse it out into whatever note fields you need it to. And that's a huge help because then we can start seeing what's actually happening in the meetings. Because I get it. If you've got 3 or 4 meetings back to back on a Sunday,
Mm.
it's really hard to like, oh, hang on. I'm going to be with you in 15 minutes while I just type out some notes real quick.
Yeah, that you can't do that.
It's rough.
No, I have a lot of empathy for the sales team in that aspect because they have so much going on and they're expected to be like jump right up when someone walks in the door and they have to be completely focused on their buyers when they're with them in person. And there's a lot of expectations. And then you've got the marketing team or the OSE being like, did you put notes in the CRM? And they're just like, oh my God, I get it. It's frustrating.
Yeah, and then I've been that guy who's having to hunt them down on a Monday morning to be like, "Hey, I need you to update all your appointments from last week. Which ones kept, which ones canceled. These ones still stay scheduled, but it was on Thursday. What happened?" So, I don't like being that guy. So I try to build that out as best I can in the system so that they can monitor them themselves and I don't have to be that micromanager that's tapping on them every month and on Mondays.
Nobody likes to be that guy. I feel like I'm very annoying in marketing a lot. So anytime I don't have to do that, it's great. I think though we're skimming on another topic, which is the communication between all of the teams. And I
Mm.
feel like a lot of what we're talking about is marketing, OSC, sales, they're all in their own little silos and they're not really communicating and we're not that handoff is rough sometimes because if we're not really on the same team, that's going to be an awkward handoff. So I wonder what's your perspective on that? Do you see that with your builders and how do you address it?
Yeah, the silo is a really big problem, not just in builders. That's universal, right? We get teams and everyone wants to be in their team. And what I've noticed is when we can get the context in the reporting to leadership, it can funnel down a little easier. I know this is all one cohesive unit and we're all working towards the same goal. We just have different parts we're playing. So then it's
Mhm.
better to understand, okay, marketing needs to know this info from sales and OSC so that we can adjust our ads to try and better target a different demographic if we realize we're sending the wrong people here. So to me, it starts with the reporting and the analysis that comes back, and then that leadership uses to funnel down to those teams.
For sure. And I think that everyone has to be on the same team. Like we're all working towards the same goal. We're all trying to sell homes. The problem is, I think we're not great at talking about why the things that we do really matter. I was talking with someone else that's going to be on a podcast episode coming up. And we were talking about that same thing. It's like marketing kind of sucks at saying all of this data that's so important to them, like why that matters to anybody else. And I think that also goes into what we're showing in the CRM. If no one understands what that data even means or why it matters to them specifically, who cares?
That's why I'm so dedicated to the data storytelling to showcase we're getting all these numbers, we're getting all this information. Here's what it says, here's why it matters, because it's informing us on our next steps of we see a problem here, this community is not converting leads to appointment set right now. Okay, here's what we can see about where the leads are coming from. This is what we know from marketing side. Here's what we're seeing now from sales side. Now we've got a clear picture to say, okay, it is a problem with the lead quality. We're targeting the wrong people. Now we can talk about strategy on do we need to change ad copy or is it we're aiming into the right, like the wrong location, or maybe our CPC is too low and just the ads we're getting are the bottom of the barrel people, not the high intent ones we really want. Like
Yeah.
that's where we can start having a good conversation.
You're bringing everyone into finding a solution at that point and communicating way more effectively, because what I end up seeing is sales saying we need more leads, and marketing, I sent this many leads, what did you do with them? And then you end up with the like we need more leads as just the default answer to all of our issues, and I don't think that's accurate in most cases.
Yeah, that's most times what I see too is we need more leads and to be the one to come back and say, we can do that,
Mhm.
but here's realistically what that's going to look like. Here's how much more we're going to be spending per lead just to try to ramp this up to generate more leads. And oh, by the way, we might be getting really bad leads at that point, and we're going to watch our cost per lead, our cost per appointment, and our cost per sale start really climbing versus we've got this part of the funnel that's breaking down. Maybe it's our set to kept is really
Mhm.
struggling here. Let's dig in here because that one extra kept appointment can turn into how many sales when we compound things by number of communities and over weeks.
One of the things I see too a lot is it's okay, we had an appointment or this lead came in and then whoever was supposed to follow up just didn't. And so that lead just ended up sitting there. And so they were high intent at the time, but then we let them sit there. So then you have to now re-engage. And I think that's one of the biggest opportunities when we go into CRMs is we see so many leads that just haven't been touched and nothing has been done with them. And I think that almost every builder has that opportunity. You have a gold mine sitting there just waiting to be re-engaged.
The re-engage one is a big one. But we talked before about I had worked with a builder and we found this kind of disconnect between the customer journey, right? In one instance, we were finding it was only this many days to get from a lead to an appointment set. And then we realized when we dug a little deeper, the people that are saving homes had a longer buyer cycle to become an appointment set. And so we started trying to tackle that this month. And it's now May. And we just did our end of month reporting. And I was looking back through and I looked at that particular group again, expecting to see that timeline getting longer in the average. And it was getting shorter still. And so I went back to the leadership and we talked about it. We dug in a little deeper. We were able to find out oh, okay, we have a prospecting problem. Our OSCs are still just going after the fresh, new, hot leads that are coming in. And we've got this very large database of older leads that are still good prospects that just aren't getting followed up with. They're not getting touch points. And I think a lot of that boiled down to the CRM wasn't set up to make that kind of visible for the OSCs. It was just focused on these are the new hot leads. This is the new hot lead. Get the new hot leads. And nothing saying, okay, but how much prospecting have we done? How much have we looked at these older leads?
Yeah.
So we're working on that this month now, and I'll be very interested to see come the end of the month, what does it look like?
Oh, that's a huge opportunity. I'm excited to hear too, because we've seen the same thing. And it's like, it takes a little bit of time, especially when you're re-engaging at first, but it's a trust the process kind of thing. And I think when you have the data and you have the right story and you can show that and show the value in what this OSC is doing, that effort is going to pay off. That effort of going back to those leads and re-engaging is going to pay off. But you have to really have enough data in order to justify that and show this is this is where your problem is. And I think that's something that is just an opportunity for everybody to go in and look at that.
Yeah, and it takes digging, right? It's almost never right there on the top. It usually takes scratching at it a bit and seeing why is that number there, right? We get a lot of reports that are, we had this many leads or this many appointments this last week. And those reports drive me nuts because it's just one number. Okay, but what's the context? Great, I got 20 leads last week. Is that down from the week before? Is that wildly different? Is that even close to your goal for weeks that you need to get to your sales goal? I see that a lot of just data without context.
Data without context. Yeah. So the podcast episode that just aired, Krista Hartford was on, and she said builders aren't data poor, they're insight poor. And I was like, mic drop moment. That's so good. I want to
Yes.
steal that from you right now, because I'm like, that's exactly what you're saying. The data's all there. We just don't know what to do with it.
Yeah. I like to say data without context is noise
Yeah, it
because you
totally
just,
is.
what am I
Yeah.
looking at?
Anyway, I think that's a good opportunity for marketers. Figure out your data and be able to work on building the story out on what that means and really dive in. I think there's a lot of aspects to that, but there are some marketers that are really good at that, and there's some that aren't. And I think when you're building out your team, you have to remember that these are sometimes different people. The person that's going to make beautiful ad creatives for you might not be the same person that will do that with your data. So you have to have more than just one skill set in your marketing team.
Absolutely. And I am not the person to do your graphics. I'm not that guy. I can give you some general ideas, but no, I'd rather be in the numbers and the data and storytelling that way.
This is a completely different mindset. It takes a lot to switch, even for people who are really good at both. Those are rare, but the context switching from being like, okay, I'm making a creative and I'm doing graphic design, and this is very right brain, to go over here and be like, oh no, now we're going to look at all this data and we're going to analyze that. That's a really hard to make that shift. And so
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
always reminding builders, hey, don't expect your one marketing assistant to be able to do every single task in marketing.
And especially not in the same day.
Oh my God. Yes. Yeah.
I don't know about you. I have started doing a much better job of organizing my days in the calendar of on these days I'm doing these tasks and on these days I'm doing these tasks so that I don't have that midday shift that slows me down where I'm like, oh, okay, now I need to think about these things and I got a whole different mindset for it.
Time blocking is so impactful. It's really hard, but I really do. I try to put together all tasks like that too. And I think any leaders out there, if you can set aside one day to have just like that, what you said, have your one main task and just spend all day focusing on that one thing, you'll be amazed at how much you can get done. But I will say, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is really freaking hard.
It's really hard. And you got to give yourself grace because it's not going to go perfect.
Yeah.
You set it with the best of intentions and just know some of this might not go the way I want, but it at least keeps us moving better.
Progress over perfection for sure.
Yeah.
So we talked about a lot of the issues and we talked about all the things that we feel like are going wrong. So now let's talk about some things that can make an impact for builders. So people that have listened all the way
Okay.
through, what are some things that you feel like are the biggest impact things that they could start doing either in their CRM or in their process? What are your tips?
So the first one I would say is going back to what I was talking about at the very beginning on lead source and really going with a fine tooth comb through how your system is tagging things and saying this is a organic lead, this is a this lead. Go through all of it and see what is it telling you. And if something is saying website as your lead source, hunt it down and fix it. And similarly, if it says live chat as a source, also not a source. I would call that a lead type. But just going through that is going to make a huge difference in understanding where your leads are coming from and what traffic is actually the most impactful in your business. Because otherwise, you don't know what your Zillow ads are doing and you don't know what your Google ads are doing. Because when I do a CPL report at the end of a month, I don't like going off of the number that Google or Zillow gives me because they'll say, oh, you've got this many leads from Google ads based on what the Google ads dashboard is telling me. I don't want to go off that. I want to go off the CRM. How many actual names and emails do I have to work with? And I can't do that if I don't have all the lead source pinned down perfectly. So that would be the first one I would tell people to go really take a hard look at.
That's really good advice. And I think it leads into the next thing is I think a lot of builders are overcomplicating what their problem is. And sometimes it's just the fundamentals are what you should focus on. And that to me is a fundamental of marketing. Is like you got to know where your leads are coming from.
Yeah. And we do overcomplicate things because it's almost fun when we do that. We start planning and idea, all these great ideas and oh, we can make this super interesting, complex system and then it breaks. We go,
Yeah.
okay, Occam's razor. How do we do this super easy?
Yeah. I think a lot of the follow-up problems and stuff that we talked about earlier and the handoff issues, a lot of that can be fixed with some automation even or some reminders and tasks. And these are pretty fundamental basic things that pretty much any CRM that you have can do. So do you have those things set up? Where are the fundamentals that you can go back to and just perfect before you get into the weeds and all this other stuff?
Yeah, and the follow-up one is I would say is the number two after looking at the lead sources is how is your CRM tracking that activity? Because being able to assign someone a task is great. Having a way to make that transparent and accountable is what really makes it powerful because then we can say, oh, we're not doing our follow-up. Now we know we need to really address this.
Now we were talking about ads earlier too, and like basically wasted ad spend if you don't have all of this set up. So how do you think that builders could improve efficiencies and make sure that they're not wasting their ad spend?
The simple answer is testing, right? Is just how long have you had these ads running and haven't tried something different to see if a shift here does something, shift there does something? You posted on LinkedIn just the other day a great post about having documentation, and it's crazy to me how often I'll come across this where there's no document on ad testing. To be like, what were you doing last month? What's the ad right now? And what are you checking between? Is it the copy? Is it the picture? What are you testing? And is your UTM showing that so we can track it all the way down to see?
Yeah, I think that's another leadership thing I think that leadership, we're all just busy. We're all working towards our things. We've got a million things going on, and going back and being like, you make sure you document that was not something that's on the top of everybody's mind. But I think if leadership really shares how important that is, it'll make a big difference and put some effort into that. Cause yeah, like I hardly ever see documentation on any of that kind of stuff.
And it's funny because it does not take long of doing that to start seeing results that make it that much easier to go back and say, here's how powerful this is. We now know don't ever use that picture in this area ever again, kind of thing. We're just burning money if we put that picture up there. Or this headline, this tagline hook does not resonate with this audience, but it really sticks with this audience. So we're going to shift. But you don't know that until you have some tests.
It's amazing to me how many people, and vendors and builders included, will set up an ad and then just set it and forget it, walk away.
And
All
leave
right,
it.
we've got an ad. And that's just like, why not just take a bucket of money and throw it out the window? That would probably be cheaper. Stop doing that, people.
Yeah, I think I told you about working with a builder and I was doing an audit of their Google ads and found they were spending almost $10,000 a month on display ads and was not seeing any conversions associated to those. They'd been set like a year ago and no one had thought about them. And so I went in and basically went back to leadership and said, I'm gonna do something a little crazy. I'm gonna turn these all off and I'm gonna leave them off for 2 weeks. And I just want to see what happens. And 2 weeks later, there had been no change in leads. So I was like, we'll go for 4 weeks, 28 days. That's not unheard of for people to cycle around, come back and reconvert. So 4 weeks later, nothing had changed. I was like, okay, great. We're going to leave these off. Congratulations. We've just saved $120,000 out of the annual budget.
And I bet they looked at you like you were absolutely insane when you brought this up the first time.
Oh, we need display ads. I'm like, probably, but that much?
Yeah, that's a lot of money. And luckily here in home building, we have pretty nice budgets, and that's not putting us out of business, right? But when you really think about it, that's a lot of money just to be throwing away. And you could have documented and tested, and all of those things would have gotten you out of that issue, and you would not have spent all that money for nothing.
You could have found that way sooner.
Mhm.
Usually just takes someone putting one little reminder in their calendar.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. Okay, so one of the other things that we talked about was the overwhelm of these systems and not knowing how to use them and things like that. What's your advice for builders on that front? Like, how do you balance having the right system and with all these functions without overwhelming your team?
You're going to have to phase it. Part of it is phasing, and then I think the other part is just, in my experience, I've seen a lot of these things get rolled out really fast and with very little training. Like I said, it's that, hey, a memo was sent out with a PDF file attached that's 13 pages long. Please read this.
Yeah. Check off training off my to-do list.
Done. I'm going to read that about as much as I read a terms and service agreement. I'm not.
You don't read those? You should read those.
I know.
Yeah.
But there's not enough follow through and follow up. There's that word again. There's not enough
Mhm.
follow through and follow up on, hey, making sure everyone knows what they're supposed to be
Mhm.
doing in the system with the new process. There's one of my builders, they just moved into HubSpot. They had gotten it set up. They had a company help them do the implementation and everything. And then I'm talking to them maybe 2 weeks later, and we're looking through stuff. And I made a comment about deal objects. And they're like, yeah, our salespeople don't really understand what a deal object is yet in HubSpot.
Yeah.
Okay, we need to schedule a sit down. Can I do that with them? I'll be happy to do that with them. Please let me do that with them.
Yeah.
Because that's the main object they're going to be living in this
Mhm.
system. How did they not get trained up on this. Like they had 1 day of training.
It's going to take a little
Okay.
more than that. It's going to take multiple days. Spoiler
Especially if
alert.
they're used to this other CRM that they've been using for, I don't even know how long they'd had that one.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to support your team. And
Yeah. So I would say that's the best way to prevent the overwhelm is do it slow if you can. Some of it is just a hard switch. This is what we're doing now. But then it's checking in on this is how it's going to run. I have a program that'll plug in with HubSpot and allows me to put the knowledge deck and everything right in HubSpot as an extension. So if they're looking at something, they can hover over it and it'll say, this is what this is. This is why it's important. And it's related to these other things.
yeah,
So they can learn it right there.
that's awesome. I feel like that would help instantly a lot of salespeople because I feel like it's so easy. If you're like, oh, I'm not sure what that does. And then you just forget about it. And then you never look at
Oh,
it
yeah.
again. Everyone will do that. I would do that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I'll get back to that later. I have work to do.
And little do they know that's the most important thing that marketing needs is that one thing that you just forgot about.
That
I
one
promise you.
thing.
All right, let's go. That one thing. That's the start of my next question. What is the one
Oh,
thing that you want builders to take from this episode about their CRM or about their buyer journey in general?
goodness. One thing.
Only one. I know. I say the
Yeah.
final question to be the hardest one, just so you know.
Thanks. It would have to be that your CRM is only as good as the data that's going in and the systems that are behind it. Beyond that, it's a tool, right? It's not going to do anything unless it's being used properly and your people know how to use it properly. Otherwise,
Mhm.
you're just going to get backlogs and you're going to get people confused and frustrated and leads are going to fall through and sales aren't going to happen.
Yep. Boom. There you go. Mic drop. That's the clip for the episode. Derek, thank you so much for sharing all of your insight. I feel like like I say almost every episode, I feel like this episode could be like 3 hours long. I need to just start like
Oh,
full
yeah.
length movies for every episode. But there's just so much to talk about, so much to share. So thank you for being here and doing that. If any of our listeners would like to reach out to you about their CRM or any of the topics we talked about today, what would be the best way for them to do that?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on there. Or they can check out my website and fill out a form, and that'll contact me that way.
Perfect. I will put the links to your website and to your LinkedIn in the description box. So people head down there if you are interested.
Perfect.
And while you're there, drop a comment as well, because we would love to hear from you. And if you have any questions that came up from this episode or just anything in general, we would love to hear from you in the comments. And Derek and I will both be there. So we'll both be able to interact with you there. And just thank you to all of our listeners for being here with us. We could not do this every day if you weren't. So we really appreciate you. And I really just thank you for supporting the show. And if you feel inclined, drop us a like too. All these internet things really help me out. Do all of those things and come back next time. Thank you, Derek, again. This has been really fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Sarah. This was great.
It was. All right, everyone. Now that is your cue. Go do all of those things and have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.